Europa's Blood, a novel by James Daniel Shunk. In our last chapter, the Anaborg Captain Nyala and her team worked to secure Europa's pumping facility to protect the security network and stop the state armada from attacking. They have not yet succeeded, as the pumping facility is wired with explosives and will soon explode. With the rogue Kumo still on the loose, they work hard to keep him from stopping them from success. They still have some time, as the state leader Remus has given Pitzy until the state's Harvest Festival to exchange the Time Machine key for a full Europa withdrawal. Now our hero, U-Jin Song, is en route from the warship Warclaw and headed to the rendezvous point near the orbital ship graveyard called XO1 to exchange the Time Machine key. Chapter 19. Forward Kill. Nyala looked at the front of the explosive device attached to the power pump generator. The timer display was counting down and currently read 24 minutes and 10 seconds. As she let her eyes scan the pump legs in either direction, she saw more blinking bomb faces in the dim light of the pumping center. "Indian!" "I see it," Jarbara said. "Cover me." He crouched over the first bomb. "I will not likely have the necessary time to deactivate all of these." "Have a stout heart, Indian," Nyoki said with a low growl. "You can only succeed, and if you fail, we won't know the difference." "Morbid," Jarbara said. "Truly." "May your dead prophet assist you," Nyala encouraged. "Does that help?" She now had her crossbow gripped tightly in her hands. Her eyes were now searching back and forth. "Not immediately. Let's hope that the deactivation software Koganga gave me works here as well." He guessed these bombs were the same make and model as what he had seen in the elevator's subsystem control room. His software had worked like a charm on only 2 code sequences. Jarbara lifted his watch as he activated the software. The scanner in the watch would first seek out the bomb, then the application would attempt to match frequencies while Jarbara would run manual algorithms. Finally, once frequencies were breached, the microprocessor in his device could turn off the bomb from its own internal mechanism. Now Jarbara saw the software scanner lock. Specifications of the explosive device popped up on the small screen. That was good. This bomb matched what he had seen earlier and triggered the first deactivation sequence. He knew he would always have to run the first algorithm sequence. If the bomb counter stopped, he would not go to the following sequence. After a long moment, the second algorithm subroutine kicked in. He ran that one with a press of a virtual button. The watch device clicked twice and a green light flashed. Another long moment later, the face of the bomb went dark. "It works." Both Nyala and Nyoki exhaled with relief. Jarbara was already rushing to the next bomb. "Let's give him the cover he needs," Nyala said. "Let's find our saboteur." She carefully moved around the pump as the silverback circled the opposite way. It had been a long time since her last combat situation. She loved to feel the surge of adrenaline. The Borg Wars had given her kin great glory in the past, and now she was sharing in it. She moved along the wall of the big pump. The constant soft rumble of its motor was audible in the background. She stopped. She thought she had heard something in the distance. It sounded like a metal pipe bouncing off the floor. After a moment, she felt no immediate danger and crept on. Slowly, the lioness took one hand off her crossbow. She looked at her wristwatch. The internal computer could also be used for thermal scanning. The screen did not display any life forms ahead except for Nyoki circling back to her. "Okay, calm down," she thought. "Rely on your instincts." Soon the two were past the pump and quietly moved into a short concourse that led to the maintenance center. Nyala pressed her back up against the wall next to the door. Nyoki took his position opposite her. The door had been left ajar. Someone must be inside. She was still looking at her watch screen. No bio signs. Where else can the human go? This is the last place to look. She glanced over at Nyoki and shrugged. Nyala took the barrel of her gun and pushed the door open with one firm push. The door swung back with a yawn. "What? Where's the dreg? The dimly lit room was filled with tools, underwater work suits, and maintenance submersible hatches. Could he have circled back somehow? Nyoki asked. How could we have missed him? It seems impossible. Then Nyala heard it. The Indian, Jarbhara, was trumpeting. Nyala and Nyoki ran out of the room and back to the main chamber. They spotted Jarbhara crouched over a bomb. Jarbhara was calmer now. Nyala. He did not look up from his work. Turn around, please. Look up at the window. Nyala and Nyoki both turned in unison. Their hearts were racing and their mouths hung open. Outside, on the opposite side of the thick glass, was a submersible. The small mini-submarine had its laser activated and was cutting on the glass. The sweat-covered Asian saboteur was visible inside. Madness, he's cutting through! Nyala turned and sprinted toward the maintenance room. Come on, Nyoki. The Lion and Silverback burst through the maintenance room door. On the far wall were 4 round submersible vehicle hatches. Nyala noticed it now. Only 3 were open. They quickly scrambled through one. Nyoki, being the last through, slapped the door button. The hatch slid shut and sealed with a hiss. Nyala's ears popped as the small cabin pressurized. The two climbed into the only seats of the small tubular craft and strapped on restraining harnesses. They were seated in the glass nose cone of the ship. Beyond the glass, Nyala could see the ship's maintenance arms reaching out in front on either side. Nyoki began activating the systems. All the control panels began to blink on as he checked the environmental gauges and released the docking clamps. Nyala flipped on forward lighting and swung the small sub around. Staying close to the wall of the pumping station, she pushed the throttle to full. Within several moments, she had the enemy sub in her sights. She could see the flickering white light from the laser. She feared that the laser would nearly be through the thickly layered glass. What's the plan? Nyoki asked. Plan? The huntress snarled. Strike. Nyoki braced himself. It occurred to Nyala that these might be her last few moments alive. She began to say a quiet prayer. She had not done that before. She hoped the great Anaborg prophet would hear her as she had shown no faith in the past. In her defense, she believed the circle of life was predetermined. She, like all Anaborgs, was a fatalist. If today was her day, it was her day, regardless. In her mind, she pictured the great prophet holding a piece of string with her dangling at the end, and he poised over the line with a pair of scissors. He would cut when Nyala's time was up. She felt only 2 things could influence this. One was prayer, and if it didn't help, she concluded at the moment that it couldn't hurt. The second thing was living according to the law written in the one doctrine, basically living a moral life. She hoped that the great prophet was smiling upon her this day. Forget my lack of faith. Their sub veered toward the saboteur's position. Everything was now dreadfully clear to Nyala. If this worked, then her life would have been worth it. Even if she died, she would die in battle. With great honor, her pride would be glorified eternally. They slammed full force into the saboteur's port side, throwing them hard against their restraining harnesses. Cracks shot over the glass nose cone. Emergency lights blinked on and a warning signal began to beep. The saboteur's sub tipped dramatically to one side. The laser blinked off. The Asian man in the cockpit of the small vessel was reeling. Nyala could see him pounding his fists off the control console. The saboteur quickly gathered himself. He compensated for the impact and swung his submersible around. His expression was visible through the cockpit window, that of disheveled rage. We have an outer hull rupture, Nyoki said, and microscopic fractures on the inner hull. They felt the pressure in the cabin rise. Nyala looked at her control panel. The sub was at 13 atmospheres or 131 meters. Below that, it said 35 kilograms per square centimeter. This meant that 35 kilograms of force were pressing on each square centimeter of the hull. At sea level, the body has 2.7 kilograms of force pushing on it, or 1 atmosphere. If the sub's emergency systems could not compensate quickly, keeping the habitat at around 2.7 kilograms per square centimeter, they would feel the pressure pushing in on their bodies. Soon, they would have trouble breathing. Next, the pressure would burst blood vessels in their eyes, and their eardrums would rupture. Lastly, the outside pressure would become so intense that it would collapse their rib cages. Their lungs would then fill with blood, and they would slowly drown agonizingly and painfully. Nyala could already feel intense pain in her ears. "Get us out of here," Nyoki said. His voice was strained. He put his hands over his ears and twisted his face into a grimace. Nyala could see the determination on the saboteur's face. What had he planned? What is left? Flooding the pump station would surely keep Jarbhara from finishing his task, which makes sense. But now Nyala kept the saboteur from this simple solution. The saboteur took a small remote detonating device from his breast pocket. His finger was poised over the trigger. He planned to manually detonate the explosives that Jarbhara was working to deactivate. With only one caveat, this would complete the saboteur's mission, but he would not escape with his life. When the pump station flooded, it would leave none with an exit to the surface, except using the submersibles. This would be futile, as they would have no way to cut through the thick ice crust above. The saboteur could not have known that. He would not have attempted to flood the pump station if he had. Trapped under the ice, they would be left to suffocate over the next few hours, just one more slow and horrifying way to die on this day. Nyala was starting to see that no scenario would let them escape. She was watching the cracks in the glass nose cone work slowly across its surface. She guessed that it was about to collapse in on them. Jarbhara was sweating over the last explosive device. The detonator timer counted on relentlessly. 14, 13, 12, 11. The small digital readout on the detonator continued to count as he tried to match the frequency. Usually this process took 3 seconds, but now he had doubled that. 10, 9, 8. Something was wrong. It took Jarbhara about 1 second before he realized what was happening. Someone was trying to tap in on his frequency. Someone was trying to detonate the explosive remotely. He tried to stay one step ahead by changing frequencies faster and faster. 5, 4. His robotic fingers were moving as quickly as they could. He might be too slow and outmatched and was wondering if the remote detonator could compensate for his adjustments. Any miscue would leave him dead. 3, 2. Jarbhara stopped breathing. Then a long-sustained beep. He froze. His stomach was burning with bile. The watch device clicked twice and a green light flashed. The bomb face went dark. Jarbhara, relieved, fell back onto the cool metal floor, sweat burning his eyes. His mind was numb. His shoulder began to throb. I hate my job. In Ulan, Russia province, a large digital screen was set up in the town square. Hundreds had come to watch the midnight message from the state. The wind was cold and 2 inches of fresh snow covered the plaza. Dogs could be heard periodically barking nearby. As the people stood there with the full moon beaming down on them, the screen came alive with the numbers of a digital clock ticking down towards 0. The numbers counted backward to Earth's global celebration, the Harvest Festival. Those in Ulan were the first to celebrate each year, as they were the farthest civilized eastern town on the planet. As the clock got close to midnight, everyone in the square yelled, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy Harvest Fest. Next, the public address screen came alive with the Father, a black silhouette of a man over a red background. The man came every year with an encouraging word. He started to talk. This is your father, the state. Without me, you would not plant. Without me, rain would not come. Without me, the plants would not grow, and without me, you would not harvest. The screen turned to static. Now there was another image. It was a broken feed of Prince Towak. The video event began to play. You are all filled with lies. Your government has desperately tried to cover up Earth's mortality numbers due to the contaminated water you drink daily. Look to your right and look to your left. Who was standing with you last year? One of these has already died. Look to your right and left again. One of you shall be gone next year. In a last desperate attempt to open a new supply of fresh water, your government came with battleships once again to steal the water from Europa. Static filled the screen, and the image of Towak was gone. The screen now had the familiar image of the father. His voice marched on. Without me, your children would cry of thirst. Everyone in the crowd looked at each other with a fear-filled realization. What had just been cheers was now yelling. A Garthbot filler was 82 years old and was the first to act. He had been young when he had fought on and around the moons of Jupiter during the Borg Wars. He had lost his leg when his ship crashed on Io. Now he limped on a cheaply built prosthesis. Since the war, his family had cultivated Subretta-spliced wheat enrichment fertilizer in solar pods. After each harvest, the state tax collectors would come and take 50% of the engineered fertilizer to be distributed through welfare channels. With the difference, he paid his farmhands and bought chemicals for the next harvest. Typically, there were barely enough currency units left to feed his family until the end of the following processing cycle. And if all that were not enough, his wife of 50 years had recently died of dysentery. With great pain in his hips and lower back, he bent down and picked up a jagged piece of ice. It had been left by the snowplows that had recently cleared the town square. With all his strength, he hurled it high into the air, hitting a black and blue clad policeman sitting on a horse near the public address screen. A moment later, hundreds more chunks of ice rained down. After the Asian man had attempted to detonate the explosives, he had turned his small vessel on Nyala and Nyoki. He throttled hard, slamming his ship into the hull of their vessel. Nyala backed away from the saboteur's submersible as fast as her vessel could. Smoke began rolling off her command console, and her sensors reported more inner hull fractures. As her robotic fingers danced over the controls, she muttered, "I will destroy you." Nyoki reached over and put his hand on Nyala's arm. "Pride, there is a time to fight and a time for flight." Nyala looked at him and roared with rage. Nyoki continued, "If we don't retreat, we won't survive." It took Nyala a moment to think about what he said. "He will escape." "I know," Nyoki said. "It is fine. Our mission was a success. Let's go back as live heroes." Nyala agreed. She turned the small vessel to head back to the dock, but before she could push the throttle forward, the Asian man extended a metal pincer, which grabbed onto her aft stabilizer. "I've lost control," Nyala said, alarmed. "He has us." Nyoki was monitoring their internal environment. "Black blood, we are pressurizing. Get us out of here fast." Nyala pushed the throttle forward. "I'm trying." She was having trouble breathing now, and her senses were failing. She could barely hear her own voice, and blood began trickling from her ears. Her eyesight was blurred. Next, a rib bolt shot out, followed by a stream of water. "Our hull integrity is failing," Nyoki said. Nyala pushed the throttle to the maximum. "I can see that." "We aren't moving." "Don't panic, Silverback," Nyala said. A strategy of retreat did not always work. A thing like this must be accepted even in the heat of battle. She reevaluated her plan. "If you can't go forward, go back." She grabbed onto the throttle and pulled it back into full reverse. Now, with both vessels propelled in the same direction, they lurched with great force. Nyala's submersible pushed the saboteur back so quickly that he had no chance to counter. He was trapped between Nyala's vessel and the wall of the pumping station. When the saboteur crashed against it, he was forced to release Nyala. His ship's rudder and propulsion system were severely damaged. "We're free," Nyala said. "Quickly, we need to get back." There was that brief moment Nyala felt some pity for the saboteur. She knew he would not get back to the dock. She glanced over her shoulder. She saw his expression. It was no longer that of anger, but now a sort of surreal surrender. He reached up his hand and wrote something in the condensation of his cracked cockpit window. Nyala's eyes were locked on him for that long moment. He wrote, "Almuk Ma'ai." She read it back quietly. "I am Kumo." Nyala pushed the throttle forward. As her vessel pulled away, Kumo slowly sank into the abyss. His blinking cabin lights were visible for a few moments before they vanished into the blackness below.